Hello and welcome to Star Calls. My name's David Turner, and as usual, I'm here with James Farley.
All right.
But joining us for the roundtable for the prequel films is Matt Murray.
Happy to speak to you, I am.
Oh, never do that again.
Yeah,
Never do that again.
That's my Yoda impression.
That was awful.
That was Yoda.
Well, who else is it supposed to be?
I thought you were doing a Gungan or something. I was just...
Sean Bell is also in the house.
Hi.
That was
practicing that all
your
day.
Obi-Wan Kenobi impression there, Sean, was that?
Yeah, why not?
He does say that. He's got a lot of catchphrases, Obi-Wan, and my favourite is, hi.
Famous for it.
Always on the move.
Oh, God, just don't. What they did to that character. I mean, let's just get straight into it. The first time we see Obi-Wan Kenobi, he just comes across as so gracious and knowledgeable, and like he's just you know, he's just so iconic. And then by like episode 3, he's just always on the move. You could just replace his lines with like noises, like with just like sighs or fuck off. But then he clearly learned that from his mentor. What was his mentor's name again, James? Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Because if you remember in episode 1, Qui-Gon Jinn was saying things like, "Oh, he's a bigger fish." Like, that was him, wasn't it? That was him, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was.
It was. Yeah,
a couple of twats.
I might start doing that. I might start having little catchphrases.
Go on,
you
like what?
do, Matt.
What? What do you know what you do?
You already try. You always try and shove things like that in the pod all the time.
It's true.
And
He
stuff
does.
Like that.
We got to get the numbers up, boys. Content. Each listener equals this amount of money. That's what he says. I don't know if you said that on the podcast yet, but right. Okay, should we talk prequels?
Let's.
I want to hear what you two think of them. Should we start with Sean?
Saw these all in the cinema, obviously, because I sort of considered myself a fan by the time these came out. Obviously, I was 14 when episode 1 came out. Short version, episode 1, like obviously at the time it was disappointing because
Really?
new Star Wars.
Instantly.
Yeah,
so how
just
old
because
were you at the time?
So I was 14 then.
But surely like when you're 14, you've still got that whole feeling of everything I watch is brilliant. You know what I mean? Like you've not got your critical eye.
I get it was
no way.
By 14, I was super cynical by that point.
Yeah, because by 14 you're like, look, who's this Jar Jar character? I'm far too mature for this.
This is for children.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember 14. I really don't remember 14. Go on.
Really?
Nah.
Yeah, Dave doesn't remember you don't remember most of your teens, do you? We've had this chat before, I think.
I think that's right. I think that is right. It's really funny when people say, "Oh, my earliest memory is going to, primary school," and I'm like, "What?" As far as I'm aware, I was born at 19. Cool.
But yeah, basically, so episode 1 was fine, but because it just suffered from like having such a build up towards it. In hindsight, it's fine. Clearly, it's
episode
not
1.
that bad. Yeah.
Really? You think it's fun? Like I thought it was the worst of the 3.
You're really?
Because I think. Well, wait. It's the worst Star Wars film I've seen so far, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I was going to say, so episode 1 is just like, okay. 2 has higher highs and much lower lows.
Yeah, it does, it does. There's no doubt about it.
Do you think 2's got higher highs?
I'd like to know what the highs are, Sean.
Me too.
What are the highs?
Very interesting.
The highs, the Yoda fight, all the Jedi kicking off when they're...
Yep.
I haven't rewatched it recently, so this is going to be hard.
Yeah, watch it again, Sean, and you'll probably have a different opinion.
No,
seriously.
the Yoda kick, the Yoda fight and the Jedi's kicking off was good. The stuff at the start, even you like that, James? Flying
the stuff
at
the start wasn't too bad. Yeah, apart from the dialogue, obviously, but the action stuff at the start was good. I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 3, I just like quite a lot, despite some obvious flaws.
Sean, have you seen it recently?
Yeah, I watched it the other week when it was on telly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
What, James?
I mean, obviously, I could spend the next 2 hours pointing out things that aren't great about it. But yeah, generally speaking, I felt it worked.
He is allowed to think that, James. You
Yeah,
can't just go.
It's absolutely.
Yes, but have you watched this recently?
It's the best of the 3 prequels, I think.
Yeah.
Easily,
but it's not like-
out.
Yeah.
but then again, not so much.
It's still got some shitty scenes in it, but yeah. I mean, how about you, Matt?
Yeah, I remember being incredibly excited for Phantom Menace and going to see it at cinema, and I was 16 at that point, and yeah, I remember walking out just being gutted because it was just all CGI. That's all I remember it being. There's just green screen everywhere.
Really? You come out of that film saying, "Oh, it's all CGI," because we didn't really know what CGI was.
Well, yes, we did. It's 99. It wasn't that long ago.
No, but I know, but I'm not sure as a 16-year-old you would come out of the cinema going, "Oh, it's all CGI." Like, I don't think you care at 16.
I don't know.
Back in those days, definitely.
I did that coming out of The Mummy. That film made me feel sick from the terrible CGI in that
but weren't
film.
you like 27 when the Mummy come out?
No, I was about 18. But
Don't know about that. So I was lying about
the first one, not the Tom Cruise one.
no, the original.
But no, I mean the CG thing is really interesting, isn't it? Because like obviously everything you've said on the show about how you can tell, especially in episode 1, just no one's used to it. They're all really struggling with the fact that like nothing around them was real.
Yeah, you can totally tell they're working in green screen sets. Yeah,
and yet fast forward to 2019, that's how like most big budget films are made now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating that because like pick a Marvel film, half the fucking costumes aren't real anymore. Like it's just absurd the amount they just add in later. So it's just interesting that obviously there are problems with it in episode 1, but in a way they kind of pioneered it, like using CG to that extent, to the point that most of the set wasn't real and stuff.
Yeah, but I just remember thinking surely they could have done this better with real sets. They felt like it was CG for CGI's sake just because they could. I was like,
I agree with that, because definitely George Lucas had that thing about he was a pioneer and that he wanted this to be like the first digital film, all of that sort of stuff.
But he kind of was, though.
Well, yeah, he was, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing. Do you know what I mean?
It's
like a bit soon.
So whatever you think of the CGI, that's one thing, but it doesn't excuse the ridiculous acting throughout most of the prequels.
Oh god, yeah.
Because even if you're saying, okay, these people weren't used to this, like green screen and stuff like that, some people in that film in the whole trilogy were just absolutely diabolical, whereas some people were passable.
That's a real shame, because Natalie Portman is a fantastic actor. And
she is.
I mean, you obviously discussed her and also Hayden Christensen. It was the script was bad, but Natalie Portman is a fantastic actor. So what's happened there? If you had, and you also talked about Hayden Christensen potentially, at one point, other people up for the role, like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's obviously an incredible actor. Would he have really elevated this terrible script and made it better?
I think he would.
Or would he have just looked like a shit actor because of the lines he was having to
because
deliver?
The dialogue in the original trilogy isn't brilliant, but the acting in it is significantly better, and they managed to elevate that. And there was the problem with this.
Yeah, but I would argue the writing is way worse in the prequels than it was in the original trilogy.
Or is it just that, like James says, so the actors in the original trilogy were able to give George Lucas notes? Aren't there famous scans of was it? I forgot his real name. Han Solo.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford. Thank you, Jesus Christ. Isn't there a famous scan of some of the notes he wrote on one of George Lucas's scripts, and it's just all crossing out entire paragraphs and rewording things, and so I guess if you haven't got a cast that are confident enough to do that.
Maybe,
and also, at that point, there was still that aura, wasn't there, around George Lucas as being this is Star Wars God. He can do whatever he wants. And it's that's a terrible idea, because that's when bad things happen.
Yeah, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson is a fantastic actor. Again,
and look at him in this. Yeah.
So I don't know, even if you had a whole new cast, if it would be elevated. I think it's just maybe the pressure of Star Wars and all the CGI and the writing, and it's just came together to become what it was.
And I think
go on, Sean.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to say one thing that I found really fascinating about the CGI is so rewatching episode 3 the other week. I mean, I didn't even clock this at the time, but I didn't realize how often all the clone troopers, none of them are real.
Yeah. Oh no, God, no.
It's so obvious watching it now, but so there are so many scenes where Ewan McGregor or whatever is just talking to no one at all, and there's supposed to be 20 odd troopers all around him, and it's
the
just
clone
troopers.
troopers.
Weird. The clone troopers, yeah, the clones.
You know, all the clone robots.
Yeah, the robot things. Yeah, no. I mean...
No? What robot? No, the clones! Attack of the Clones! The clones in Star Wars!
What are you confused about here?
Like, what I'm confused about is that Sean had to say none of those clone troopers were real, but of course they weren't. They were these robot things.
No, not the robots.
I mean, the CGI. They weren't
real.
real people in suits. They were all CGI. Like, if you watch it again, like, they all just look a bit weird and off. Like,
are you talking about the ones that kind of look like stormtroopers?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Got you. Yeah. No. You can tell it's the armor, isn't it? It just looks like it's It's the colours are too solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a bit bizarre. It didn't bother me though. I wouldn't say it bothered me.
I think it's more just like in hindsight. It's like I understand the sets and everything, but it's like they could have just been people in costumes. Why weren't they?
Yeah. Why do that? Yeah. So first one, very disappointed. Second one, I watched and it was just incredibly boring. It was a nothing film really. I watched it obviously, and third one I thought was good, and maybe that was in comparison to the first two. But I left the cinema on that day thinking actually that was a really good one. I really enjoyed that. It was still like a prequel, so it still felt like it wasn't as good as it. It wasn't an incredible Star Wars film. It's still sort of muddied with the other two previous prequels. But I was like, no, I like that, and it's good.
I think it ended really well, and that's why you might have come out more positive.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
And then yesterday I watched both episode 2 and episode 3 yesterday, and I watched episode 1 a few weeks ago because it was on TV again. And when I watched it on TV, I was like, this isn't as bad as I remember it being, actually. It was all right. I mean, yeah, obviously it's not a great film, but, you know, I still think the Darth Maul fight is fantastic. The pod racing bit's brilliant.
Did you find...
but that's it. That's the problem.
Yeah. But overall, I wasn't like, oh, God, Jesus. I mean, maybe I was just... It was all the build-up when I was 16.
You say that's it, Dave, but at least it didn't have like Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen like rolling around in fields discussing fascism and pretending to be in love.
No,
that was much worse.
But it had Jar Jar Binks falling over talking about doo-doo, and it had a little boy going yippee throughout the whole film.
That's still not as bad as that love stuff.
You say that, but you're forgetting some stuff from episode 1. It was pretty dumb. Okay.
Did anyone find, just quickly, sorry, episode 3... Did anyone find, I mean, Dave, you won't be able to compare, but like, does anyone find it sort of, it improves with age purely because, and I'm not justifying Anakin's actions whatsoever, like this isn't, none of this is a good reason to become, none of this is a good reason to become space
They had it coming.
But the whole, like, now being a dad, the whole thing of like, he is just shite scared about losing his pregnant wife.
No. Nah.
It's like...
Nah.
No? Okay. I just, to an extent, I was like...
I would be scared about losing my pregnant wife, but at the same time, I ain't going to slash children's heads off.
I know. But what if it was like a lesser crime? What if someone was like, look, if you rob a bank, then you can...
What Sean's trying to say here is there's degrees of evil, and it's just he went a bit far.
He pushed it. He pushed his luck.
You can save him if you go up to Yoda and call him a little green fella and sort of tickle his nose, and then you can save it. Oh, I don't want to do that, but I'll save your pregnant wife. Okay, I'll do it then.
I think it's just like, because obviously the romance is completely not convincing whatsoever, but obviously watching that film as a teenager, you're just like, oh, this is fucking stupid. Whereas as an older man, I was like, I can see why he would be terrified about this happening and why it's like such a big deal to him. But
do you know why?
But not enough to murder children, obviously.
I see what you're saying, but do you know where that falls apart?
Go on.
The fact
that loads of places.
Throughout the whole film, it seemed like he even sort of hated her. Like, you know what I mean? Like the words coming out of his mouth were, "Oh, I love her so much," but the way he looked at her and spoke to her and all of that.
Well, his other words were, I'm haunted by the kiss.
Yeah.
It's hardly like, oh, I love
that's
you.
just it. Like when she announces she's pregnant, you're just like, they've had sex. How would that even...
Yeah.
They barely can like have a conversation. Mind you, that's how some couples work, I guess. But it's just,
Weird one. Okay, right. So the prequels were done. And here's what I really want to know. I've been really looking forward to asking you guys. I want to know, so how long was it between the prequels and the next film? What is it? Force Awakens.
10 years, wasn't it?
10 years, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Were there any indications that there was a new Star Wars film coming prior to the sale of the Star Wars?
There was always rumours.
What do you mean, like rumours? Like how strong? That he was working on it, if he was casting and stuff like that?
Not as far as casting, but the fact that there was always rumours that he was going to go back to it at some point and that there were going to be another 3 films.
It didn't go as far as, like, he's got a script and...
Well,
because the myth has always been that, like, oh no, he sketched out 9 episodes from day one, which is nonsense, but that persisted, so everyone was like, well, there's going to be another 3 one day.
But also, he did have plans for another 3 as well, which
he did, didn't he?
That he took to Disney,
which got thrown out
as well. Yeah,
he took to Disney.
Yeah, he took them to Disney. I mean, this goes into the whole Disney sale thing, but that is part of it as well.
When you say he took them to Disney, was this after he'd sold it?
Yeah, this was because he was going to be.
Oh my god!
I mean, do you want me to tell you this? Because it's kind of interesting.
If it doesn't spoil anything from the actual anything that happened, but
I don't think so.
Am I right in thinking that they bought Star Wars, then he showed up with some ideas for the next Star Wars, and they said, "No, George."
Actually,
we literally
bought it building, George.
That's not far from the mark. That's not far off.
This is just
because what happened was he was originally supposed to be a consultant on the film, and they also said, they weren't interested in any of the ideas.
Him to the wrong set.
Yeah,
you can be assistant to the consultant.
I mean, I've even got a quote here. George, do you want to hear the quote?
They sent him to the Hangover series. God, let's get a quote.
He says, so first of all, he says, they wanted to do a retro movie. I don't like that, he said. And then he said, they weren't that keen to have me involved anyway. But if I get in there, I'm just going to cause trouble because they're not going to do what I want them to do. And I don't have the control to do that anymore. And all I could do is muck everything up. And so I said, okay, I will go my way and I'll let them go their way. Yeah, and that was it.
That's a quote from a grown man.
Yeah. Right, we're going with, let's see. Yeah, but it's a grown man that wrote the prequels, Matt. I'm not that surprised.
I mean, he said some other things about Disney as well, but...
Right, hold on to them, because let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
So, there was rumours that he was working on them, but nothing's
concrete, solid,
real.
No.
How long before Force Awakens did they announce that Disney had bought the franchise?
It was instant. It was like they bought...
What?
Okay,
what, they said, we've bought it, and the film's out today!
Here's the trailer.
No, they said they bought it in 2012 for the 4.5 billion. And as soon as it...
4.5 billion?
Yeah, they've made the money back, though. The money's already been made back on it.
They probably made the money back, like... did they make the money back off the first film and the merchandise around it?
No, it's
they
been...
They didn't?
No, because I was looking at this today. They made it in the 4 films that have come out since they bought it. Totally, if you put it all together, the receipts or whatever have made up the 4.5 billion. So, yeah, they've made it back.
Fuck. Okay.
But they bought it, and then as soon as it was announced, they immediately announced they were doing another 3 films. That was the thing.
Okay. But how long before the first one came out?
Okay, so that was 2012. When did Force Awakens come out?
2015, right? So it took 3 years to get going. Yeah. Okay, right. So how was it announced? Like, how did this news come out?
I don't know, was it?
I honestly don't remember.
I don't remember it being... I mean, I remember it being a big deal because this was the whole thing of, like, Disney are, like, consolidating everything. Like, they're just buying everything.
Yeah.
But this was one of the first ones when it was, like, a really big deal because it seemed like such a smart thing for them to do as well.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, that is just made for Disney. You know what I mean? Like, it just is. And
I mean, obviously, people went nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm assuming there was a lot of anger about it.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, it's going to be like the fucking Lion King.
I don't know. I don't think there was a lot of anger. I mean, there was excitement, particularly because of the idea there was going to be another 3 films. Because after the prequel stuff came out, I always had the feeling that Star Wars was, like, by that point was a really tainted brand. Like,
this was it, wasn't it? Like, a lot of the positivity was basically like, what, did you want George to do another 3?
Yeah. Do you want more
surely
of that?
This is going to be, this can't be any worse. And, like, plus, obviously at this point, Disney were like 4 years into the whole Marvel thing, and that was doing insanely well. So everyone was like, this will probably be okay. But yeah, there definitely were some people who were like, no, that's it, Star Wars is over, fuck it. But yeah, generally it was positive, wasn't it?
What was the feeling when J.J. Abrams got announced as the next person to work on Star Wars?
I think it was broadly positive. I think, people were. What do you think, Sean? I mean, I'd say it was broadly positive.
Because he'd done Star Trek at this point, hadn't he?
Yeah,
he'd done the first one.
Yeah. And obviously, like, he's just one of those names, isn't he? Whatever he gets attached to seems to do all right.
So he did Star Trek, but I really know him from Cloverfield more than anything else. That was when it was like, holy shit, this film is really good. But that was one of his earlier ones. What else did he do?
Well, it was Lost as well, which was
Lost. Of course, he did Lost, didn't he?
Better or worse.
Yeah,
and that was always a bit of a concern, because it's like, there's always been this thing I've always felt with Jar Jar Abrams, where it's like he can come up with like these really good like mystery box ideas or whatever, but then doesn't follow through, and that's been a bit of an issue. And that, I think there was a concern about that with Star Wars, but we'll see how that works out.
Well, I think the bigger concern was that he's done Star Trek, and he made a really excellent Star Trek film, and now what he's going to then go over. And, but did you guys not enjoy it? It did really well
enjoyed
reviews,
it.
didn't
It's
it?
just, I mean, James, you're more of a Star Trek guy than I am. It's just not particularly Star Trek.
It's not a Star Trek film. Yeah, that's the problem with it. Yeah.
But it was well received as a movie.
The most nerdiest
it was well received to a very broad audience. Let's put it that way.
I wanted it to be only enjoyable by me and my 3 mates
who like Star Trek.
Okay.
I think the concern was that he's done Star Trek. Can he now like switch over and do Star Wars? I remember that being like a bit of a topic of conversation. Could he do both, and what would that mean? And as you said, James, like the Star Trek film felt in many ways like a modern Star Wars film. So how different would the Star Wars film be? But I do remember people being quite excited just because he had done so well with the previous one.
So
that second Star Trek film was trash.
Read me some of these George quotes, James.
All right, so, I mean, the other thing that happened was, you see, initially it seemed like it was all fine, but then George Lucas talked to a journalist, and this was...
he did like a... Because I would have thought he would have signed like some sort of contract
you'd think that, but he talked to this journalist called Charlie Rose about his decision to sell Lucasfilm to Disney, and he described it as being a bit like a divorce. Now, this is the bit that is a bit dodgy. He also described Disney as being white slavers that he'd sold his children to.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yes. What? Yeah. So,
Jesus.
So he described the films as being like his kids, and then he said that he'd sold them. And this is the quote: he said, "To the white slavers that take these things." And so he said that, but then obviously after that he apologised for saying that and said that that wasn't really what he meant or anything like that. And actually, he had a lot of respect for the Disney company.
Oh yeah, of course he did. Fucking hell, they gave him $5 million for
billion.
Billion. I mean, don't $5 million, $100 million. And, like, what? Why would you? I mean. Okay.
I mean, I think this was after they'd probably torn up his ideas for the other films.
Yeah.
And so he was a bit upset, maybe.
Yeah, he's proper throwing a paddy. Any others?
No, that's all I've got at the moment. I mean, there was that, and then there was also just the stuff about him not being happy with The Force Awakens being like what he called like a retro film.
Right, okay. I don't want to know any of that stuff. But yeah, I mean... Personally, as someone that's watched the films in quick succession and only watched them once, I was like, I'm pretty excited about these next few films because most of the stuff that I didn't like about the prequels and stuff were all, pretty much because of him. I think if there's one thing that I've learned through this podcast and my calls to James, is that George Lucas is he's a character. I mean, it's just some of the decisions they made on the films, some of the ideas that sort of either just drifted apart or, the stories you tell about, he just recorded his cough and put it in. Like, why? The whole Tarzan stuff, all of that, it could be all directly linked to him. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? You started something really good. Let's just move on now. Let someone...
It's
like that to do these.
It's almost like, there are so many, like in the initial trilogy, there are so many sort of happy accidents or things that, weren't supposed to be a big deal that people really came to love. That then when he came to do the prequels, he was just like, oh, well, I guess just like every tiny little thought and idea that I have should be acted upon because that's just how I'm just a genius. Like you should have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's mental. So I'm the feeling that I've got at the moment is that I'm happy that he's not involved with the next few films because if only that I don't concentrate on George Lucas while I'm watching these films so much. Because I found myself doing that. The more I watched these Star Wars films, the more I was going, oh, George, that's George. Oh, for fuck's sake, George. And it became less about the film and the characters and more about my dislike for George or me thinking about like the amount of times I was watching a scene and instead of thinking about the scene in my head, I'm picturing a boardroom meeting where George is pitching this idea for his new Star Wars film or whatever and everyone's nodding because he's the boss and it is just like this and then we will have them do this. Yeah, George, let's have them roll around. Okay, I've got this great scene where Anakin talks about sand, you guys, and it's really the metaphor here is really fucking good, man. Yeah, George, great idea. Let's do that. That's what was going through my head when I was watching these films. So now that I can disconnect myself from that, I think I'm gonna really sort of let myself go with these next ones. I'm really looking forward to them.
Mm-hmm. Because do you know the sort of structure of it, how they've been doing it? In the basically,
I know. Yes, I'm aware that they've done the next story, a side story, the next story, a side story,
a side story. Yeah.
But
which has been great.
I'm not quite sure how their side stories, considering they're still based around like the main characters and stuff.
Oh yeah, but they're just they're not just like this is the new one that continues the story sort of.
Yeah, so I'm just looking forward to it. I can't wait to see where it goes. Basically. You all right, Dad?
Oh, all right, mate.
All right. So I've been watching Star Wars for the first time ever, right?
Never mind.
And people have been saying that like they find it weird that it's not part of my youth, but I said we never really had it in the house. Like, what? You remember Star Wars coming out, right?
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, of course I do.
So what happened? Did you not bother with it?
Well, I'm not one for sci-fi anyway, but I thought it might have done if I showed it to you. It cost me a fortune in the bleeding toys that they were
Is that it? You remember the toys coming out everywhere?
Yeah.
Wasn't it weird that we weren't into the toys or anything?
Well, no, because you never saw it, did you? So how can you be into the toys?
You just kept it away from us?
Yeah, it's your mum's idea.
Right, okay. Have you seen the Star Wars film?
Nah.
Okay. But then you've heard about Star Wars from people and stuff, right?
Of course I have, yeah.
So what do you know? Like, can you name any characters from Star Wars?
You got Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You got that big airy thing, ain't you? What they call it? What's the big one with the gruff voice?
The big Chewbacca?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, but see, how can I show kids bloke called Chewbacca?
Right, okay. And who else?
That little funny thing, R2P2 or what is his complete name?
R2D2, yeah.
That's the one, yeah. Him and that gold thing that walks about.
C3PO.
Yeah, well, there you go.
How about any of the main ones? Who's the main sort of hero in the first three films, the films that come out in the 70s?
I don't know his name. I ain't got a clue, mate.
If I was to give you the first name, Luke.
Oh, yeah, Skywalker.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what do you think?
Made Chris, didn't he?
What do you think the what do you think the story's about?
Stars.
Do you just think it's about right? There's a war in the stars. What do you think the war's over?
What's it over? What stars are brightest? I don't know.
Do you know? Here's a question: do you know the relationship between Luke Skywalker?
Oh yeah, I do. I'm your father, Luke.
Right? How do you know that?
Because it's on an advert and it's somewhere.
Is it what you've seen it on an advert? Do you know the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia?
What, he's shagging her or what?
Well, sort of.
Not when there's gravity involved.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but
they float about. Where's going to get together? They're floating all over the bleeding place.
Have you ever heard of? They're on planets, Dad.
Oh, all right, go on.
Have you heard of the character Jar Jar Binks?
Who?
Jar Jar Binks.
I thought it was a group.
No, that's not a group. Do you know about the films in the 90s? The 3 films that came out in the 90s?
No, I've never even followed it. I don't like silly films like that. I don't like them sort.
But you like Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, but that's not what's the name, is it?
It's sci-fi.
You think it's sci-fi?
Yeah, it's science fiction. It's about time travel. That's science fiction.
Well, I don't know whether I'll class it. I just thought it was a comedy.
All right, fair enough. Well, there's some funny moments in Star Wars films.
Yeah. No, where? What? When? Where's the funny moments in...
I mean, what do you mean, where what? I could tell you, but you won't know. You've not seen them.
Out, don't they? You know, mine's bigger than yours. That big weapon that lights up.
What's that called?
It's a saber, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lightsaber.
Yeah. No, that's a sword.
Do you know what the Death Star is?
Is that where you go to die, probably?
No, okay, that's fine. That's as good an answer as I would have had. And you've got no curiosity in Star Wars. You've got no reason to sit and watch them.
No, it brought me stiff. I like to laugh. I like to be entertained. I don't like being, what's them robots in? What's them other things in white? What do they call them? The army, whatever.
See if you get it. Storm
Trooper.
There we go. See, you know some stuff.
Yeah, but weren't they by ABBA?
All right. Okay. So you've got no interest in Star Wars.
No interest whatsoever in Star Wars. What is the point?
This week we have been absolutely bombarded with emails and tweets, and I just want to thank everyone for getting involved with the show. If you tweeted in, or even if you're just listening to it, we really appreciate all the support you've given us. And as usual, we're not a big we've not got a lot of marketing money, I think is the best way of putting it. So if you really enjoy the show, then the best way you can support us is by turning to a friend and telling them to listen to it, because the more our listener figures go up, the better. But yeah, I mean, it's blown us away, the response we've had to these calls, and we're going to go through some of your emails and tweets. Matt?
Yeah, let's go. Because that with Adrian Chorley. All right, lads. Didn't write into the first roundtable because when you're looking at the original trilogy in isolation, there was relatively little I could say. They were the films I was brought up on. My earliest memory being sat on my mum's knee at the ABC cinema in Chester, watching Luke take on the Rancor. At 3 years old, I love the Ewoks, now lovingly referred to in some quarters as murder bears, which is precisely why I think George had them in there. The franchise had me, and decades later it remains dear to my heart, somehow just managing to speak to me in a way that at times is comfortably nostalgic and others excitingly fresh. When the prequels came around, I was a 19-year-old first-year student at Manchester Uni. In fact, this week was the 20th anniversary of the UK release of Episode 1. The internet was already taking effect though in 99, and after following rumours online and watching trailers on the old Apple Trailers website, I remember that, we were delighted to get our hands on a pirate copy almost immediately after the American release in May.
Do you remember them? Did you ever go to pirate, like when you were on holiday in Spain or whatever, and you went into a video store that did pirate copies, and they used to have to show you the video on a screen in the shop before they sold it
to prove it, yeah.
Yeah, there was so many crappy copies and stuff. Yeah, God.
He carries on. Most 19-year-olds just want to be cool, so my mates easily dismissed it as shite. When we moved in for our 20s with episodes 2 and 3, they did the same, ultimately ending up with the same belief. The originals are good, but the prequels are shit. For me, as someone further invested in the world George Lucas had built through the books and the games that followed the original trilogy, there's a lot of good in there, though for better or worse, it's part of the story of that world. Episode 1 is a weird mess of a movie. Definitely watch the documentary, and I found that over the years rewatching it, Jar Jar gets less grating and the good parts become more enjoyable. Episode 2 felt better at release, less Jar Jar, Anakin wasn't a kid anymore, but gets worse with repeated viewings, many missed opportunities, the worst dialogue of them all, etc. Episode 3 righted a lot of the issues with better acting, dialogue and action, and gave the trilogy its epic conclusion. It is without question the best of the three, but it doesn't come close to any of the others before or since. It's worth pointing out that the Clone Wars cartoon, the Canon one with 6 seasons to date and a 7th and final one coming soon, did a terrific job of correcting many of the issues that the prequels brought. It develops the relationship with Anakin and Obi-Wan much more deeply than the films ever had time to, irrespective of their quality. Palpatine's overall plan is also given more time. It's no excuse for errors.
They had time to develop that. Over the 3 films, they had time to develop that.
They did.
They didn't.
They certainly had time. They just somehow chose not to and chose to focus on other areas. I don't understand why.
They could have just binned off the entire first film and just started from there. Would have been fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Imagine if Darth Maul was in like one of the later films. It would have been. I know, but
would have been more interesting.
Yeah. It's no excuse for errors made in the production of the films, but in reality, there's a huge amount of canon material now exists outside of them, which does improve the prequels. They need to take time to consume it. Clone Wars was overseen very closely by Lucas, and so it really can be seen as his correction of his own errors. I think most people feel that the biggest misstep, perhaps in the entire trilogy, is starting with such a young Anakin. But that speaks to the biggest issue of the trilogy as a whole. What everyone, and by that I mean everyone who was 15 or over, wanted for George to say, right, everyone who liked my first trilogy is older now. Now I can take them through a really dark story of how Anakin became Vader. But no, George wanted to create a story for the new generation and somehow tell this inevitably tragic tale in a way that would appeal to young kids, rather than the original fans who are now all in their late teens, early 30s or even 30s. Early 20s or even 30s. He was always very honest about that, and so I've always felt it's only fair to view the films with that knowledge. This does not excuse elements that are simply poorly directed or scripted, but whenever I think Jar Jar's annoying, I always remind myself that the kids loved him, and they really did.
Did they?
Yeah.
Why?
It's just...
Because he's like funny slapstick humour, isn't it? I guess.
Okay.
Generally speaking, young people were just like, great, another Star Wars film. Like, there was no like dropping quality to kids.
I'm glad Anakin took them out and in. Young people.
I had some nephews that grew up with them and they loved them at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect now, they're kind of like, yeah, they weren't that great, were they? But at the time, they thought they were great.
I just imagine like you having to deal with that, like your nephew, like you'd just seen episode 1, and then your nephew comes, "Hi, Uncle James. Yeah, you're all right. Have you seen the new Star Wars film?" "Yes." "Wasn't Jar Jar the best thing in Star Wars?" like James just like all of a sudden you see an exterior shot of his house and the kid flying through the top window.
No, it's like we need to have a conversation. Sit down.
Yeah, but when episode 1 was on TV a few weeks ago, I watched it with Elodie, and she said she loved Jar Jar. She thought it was really, really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, the
thing with Jar Jar is like all the sort of like there's so many bits he's in that actually are just totally superfluous as well. It's like you could just remove these and it wouldn't affect it would improve the flow of the film. Like obviously there's a couple of bits where he does sort of need to be there, but actually by and large it's like, so not only is he like kind of annoying, it's like, oh, you could just take him out if you wanted and it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
just take him out and give him his own movie. That's what I should have done. What is very interesting, won't be represented at all in your round table, is that the generation who were Lucas's target audience are now all adults and all have social media accounts. Amongst the online Star Wars community, there are now huge numbers of people for whom the prequel trilogy was their first Star Wars experience. It was what they grew up with and what they hold dear to them. As hard as it is for us oldies to grasp, they weren't annoyed by the things that annoyed us. Just as I, at 3 years old, was not annoyed by the Ewoks. I'll never be able to unsee these problems with the prequel trilogy, but within the fandom there is a way of thinking of them now generally referred to as prequelists, an approach of accepting these films exist and just taking the good from them. This also helps on not causing conflict and division amongst fans of the franchise, something Dave will no doubt become well aware of as he moves through the new era of films. Anyway, I'll stop rambling now and say further comment for after he's watched the next era. Having found things to like in the prequels, I'm hopeful and confident Dave will have a great time with the forthcoming 4 films. But I also fully expect the edgelords to come out to play, making for some interesting emails and discussions. May the force be with you all. And that was from Adrian Chorley.
Adrian, lovely email. Thank you very much. It's interesting to hear how much it's affected people's lives. I mean, mainly because I haven't had that. And, I've been getting a lot of tweets and emails and stuff saying, how did David not know this? And why is it that, you know what I mean? And I think, some of them is down to me being incredibly thick. But I think there's quite a few of them you could aim to. You've got to remember, I've just seen these films once. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'll probably go back and watch them all again. I've got no doubt I will at some point. especially when like Harry's been really, really getting into Star Wars and he hasn't seen any of the films. So you know that Galaxy Edge advert's been all over TV.
Yeah.
He's like, Dad, Star Wars every time it's on, right? Because he's obviously aware that I'm watching these films and stuff, and I've been going around people's houses and they've been talking to me about Star Wars because, you know, now they can. I don't just tut and walk off. In fact, actually, I've found myself going up to people going, "You're a Star Wars fan?" You know, it's really weird.
I thought you were going to say, I've got to people and start going, do it.
But I've only watched these once, so there's a chance that I'm going to go back and watch them and pick up so much stuff that I've missed the first time round. And I'm quite looking forward to that. Like, I'm really looking forward to watching the first 3 films again, knowing everything that I know now. So I don't know if that is further extended once I watch the next few films, but going back and watching those original films is going to be really interesting, because I'm sure there's more plot holes that I've missed, but I'm sure there's also clever references that I've missed as well. So
definitely, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
He mentions the Clone Wars cartoon. I know we touched on this on the last Roundtable one. So he's talking about the CGI one that has loads of seasons. If you haven't got time for that, I would still really recommend the 2D one, which is it's like an hour and a half all in, and basically for the same reasons. Like, I think that's why I enjoyed episode 3 as much as I did, because to me, Anakin going to the dark side felt much more believable because I'd seen this sort of in-betweeny cartoon series. But I mean, obviously, yeah, when you find time to do it, it's not like essential.
I don't think I'm there yet, Sean. Yeah. If I'm totally honest with you, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm at the point where I'm like, I've got to watch the extended stuff. Like,
absolutely.
I might get there towards the end. I doubt it, but I might be. I'm not quite ready for that stuff yet, but maybe I will in the future.
Maybe after you get your tattoo, your Star Wars tattoo, then start watching the other stuff. It'll
happen. Just a massive lightsaber on my D. Right.
Tiny lightsaber. Tiny child lightsaber. Email now from Justin Hill. Hi guys, love the show. My one comment / question is about what you were saying about there being no reason why the Jedi shouldn't fall in love. I'm not sure whether it is from the expanded universe or from the prequels themselves, maybe one of you know, but I'm pretty sure the reason is that attachments for a Jedi are forbidden, because it makes a Jedi far more susceptible to the dark side. Anakin is the case in point. No Padme, no problems. They're meant to selflessly serve the Force, and it can sometimes be hard to do that if you're trying to keep your wife alive. Keep it up. It's been such a joy to listen to. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on the Disney films. And that was from Justin Hill.
James, is this true?
Almost certainly, yeah. I mean, that does make sense.
So, that was always my interpretation. Is that as a Jedi, you're meant to just be...
That's the problem then, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the
problem. Because the whole point is, like, if you're a Jedi, you shouldn't fear death because you understand that it's all just this process of life, sort of, you know, entering a person and then leaving them, but then just going back to its original state. It's like, it shouldn't really be something you're afraid of.
That's not the problem that I'm talking about. The problem I'm talking about is that this was clearly quite a big plot point there. In this film, episode 2, yet everyone's going, I'm pretty sure that's the reason.
They never really fully established like the whole Jedi stuff.
I suppose they don't spell it out, do they? No. But I don't know. I felt it was clear enough.
But at the time, you felt it was clear enough that the Jedis weren't allowed to have relationships.
This is another thing, though, where there's been like tons and tons of extended universe stuff that's gone into all of this.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I'm just watching the films, and I'm pretty sure the majority of people are just watching the films.
Yeah, maybe I'm drawing from other things and I don't even know it.
There's a line in it where she goes, I thought you weren't supposed to, you know, get romantically involved, and he was like, don't worry about that.
Yeah, it's actually like, if anything, it's a good thing.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
If anything, it's encouraged.
Yeah, if anything, it's because it shows love and compassion. So if anything, let's go.
If anything, we'll just do it. If anything, we'll just release the bra.
If anything, do it.
If anything,
I'm divorced. It's strange.
If anything, will you marry me? If anything. Right, okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's that. Chris O'Regan emails in, "Hi, while listening to the last episode of Star Wars, I noticed how both James and Dave were somewhat shaken by the fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin. The immortal line of 'I have the high ground' being spoken about briefly. James is right, in that particular line was ridiculed at a time and has become a meme to the historically accurate giant enemy crab Sony were convinced were real during the E3 PS3 reveal conference in E3 2006. Don't quite know where that was going. Their reaction was a stark contrast to what I experienced when watching Revenge of the Sith at cinema release. As soon as Anakin's limbs were separated from the rest of his body, a voice came from the back of the cinema had yelled, 'Come back here, I'll bite your legs off,' and they were promptly followed by, 'I've had worse, it's only a flesh wound.' At this point, the cinema was filled with laughter. All this while supposedly poignant moment between a Jedi Master and his pupil were being played out. Somehow, someone decided it was in fact a tribute to the Black Knight encounter in Monty Python's The Holy Grail. I still remember the echoes of laughter as someone yelled out, 'I'm Darth Vader, I'm invincible,' followed quickly by, 'You're a loony.' Ever since, I've not been able to separate Monty Python's Holy Grail and Revenge of the Sith, although one is far more entertaining than the other. Keep up the excellent work." So
where the fuck is that cinema? And how can I never go there?
So was it a reference? It wasn't a reference, surely.
It definitely wasn't a reference. It's not an intentional one, anyway.
No. The high ground thing, there is a theory about this, but I'm almost scared to say it because it is probably rubbish. So the theory is, when Obi-Wan takes out Darth Maul, he's hanging off the thing and he manages to flip up and over him and he kills him.
Yeah.
Supposedly, it's that Obi-Wan knows that Anakin, like he's taught Anakin that, and therefore he knows what Anakin is going to try, and therefore he knows how to... Apparently Anakin does like a similar flip at him. I don't know. It's probably bollocks.
That's awful.
Apparently, people have suggested it's because he knows what move Anakin is going to do, and therefore he knows how to defeat him.
James, you can't say that's awful after you said, the force fields on an emergency release to surround the ship and keep the oxygen in. I mean, I didn't care. Wait, can I just go back to that cinema, though? When you all went to watch this film, sorry, it's the important bit of the email. When you all went to watch these films, you didn't hear heckling in the cinema, did you?
No, only laughter, as I said, when Yoda started fighting. But apart from that,
do that?
I can't
Who's sitting there shouting shit out? I mean, come on. I take like Harry to the cinema full of kids, and they don't shout shit out while the film's on. That would just infuriate. Honestly, I'd lose my shit if someone was going. Do you know what, mate? Shut up. Yeah, it ain't all about you.
Well, this is it. A lot of nerds think they're really funny, don't they? Is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, Chris's email says there's one voice. It's probably some guy who had a couple of pints beforehand and he was feeling cocky.
Yeah, he's had his first drink and he's
it was Chris himself.
Yeah. Get along with this one, boys.
No, I genuinely, I stand by what I said in the show. It just felt like it was like, haha, gotcha, rather than a sort of, okay, I have definitely won now, so it's time to give up.
Just, certainly at
the time I just read it as like, he's just pointing out he's got a tactical advantage, therefore probably leave it, mate.
Yeah, but, it's not worth it, bruv. Yeah. It's not worth it. Allow it, bruv. Allow it.
But yeah, that scene where he like jumps over and then he chops his legs off, it is horrific, and then he's like burning on the ground, and his like body's catching fire. It's like, even now, it's like, it's still, I still think that whole scene, or that last like 20 minutes, half an hour is excellent, but I think that last scene
just imagine one of those, like in a sitcom,
that fight scene
goes over to George Lucas and he goes, yes, it's a kid's film. It cuts back to like Darth Vader just burning, just scalding and shit.
It's weird that like that final moment with the two of them is like, it's almost like the most believable part of their friendship, and it's because one of them has ended it. Like, you know. But
why, Anakin? Why? We're supposed to take him down.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. That was so well done.
Yeah. No, I enjoy that whole last bit.
Yeah.
There is the one bit. So their lightsaber fight is generally excellent. There's a couple like really spectacular bits. However, there is that one bit where they just both twirl the lightsabers around for about 3 seconds.
Yeah,
which is very silly, but. Yeah.
I mean, like, I was watching like the films yesterday, and I was thinking, like, there's so many points where they like spin round, like surely needlessly, like spinning round isn't going to help.
It's just like it's just showing off, isn't it? That's
all it is. In boxing, I watch a lot of boxing. You get that in boxing sometimes, though, legitimate boxing, where there'll be moments where they just step back and then just put their hands like flop to the side or whatever. I'm like, mate, he's just gonna smack you in the face if you do that.
Yeah,
lift them up.
Yeah, but that's different because that's taunting your opponent to try and get inside their head. This is just like, I'll spin around now to do it a cooler way.
I'm going to do a little pirouette.
That's what I'm doing, actually. You're going to get got.
Two things I'm surprised you didn't mention on the show, actually. One, by episode 3, for some reason, Obi-Wan has developed this really weird lightsaber stance with his 2 fingers pointing out.
Yeah, that was odd.
That is weird.
All of those poses were weird. I didn't like
really
those.
Strange. The other one was, do you know who voiced Darth Maul, Dave?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Voiced Darth
Maul. Do you know the story behind that?
Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, I've heard the
which one is it?
Episode. The Richard Herring live at...
Oh, did you talk about it? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, you've got to hear that. It's amazing. I'd heard it before because I listened to that podcast, but going back knowing what I know now is, because I think I either tuned out or fast forwarded that bit because I was like, I don't get any of these references.
Boring. Yeah, I mean, the story that has persisted, James may correct me on this because I haven't fact-checked it, but basically, so it's this guy, is it Ray Park, who was hired to figure out how a double-ended lightsaber might work, like the fighting style for it and stuff. And then it turned out he got so into it that he just couldn't really train anyone else to do it. It was just really complicated, but he couldn't act for shit. So they basically did a Darth Vader with him where they were like, look, you be the guy, but we'll get Peter Serafinowicz to do the voice.
That must be like the sort of story that he tells down the pub and no one believes. Yeah. So basically, I was asked by George Lucas to go and see how best to fight with double-sided sword, but I was so good at it. So, yeah. I was so good that he said, just be in the film, but don't use your voice. And I was like, okay, mate. So I did it and then left and went home. It's like, yeah, all right.
But he's just a voice, isn't it? Because isn't it Ray Parks who does the actual lightsaber battles?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but yeah.
Tune out there, Matt.
What?
Did you tune out of that whole bit that Sean just took you through?
A little bit. Right, next email. Tom Pollard. Hey guys, love the show so far. Can James tell Dave about Jar Jar being a Sith Lord theory?
Oh man.
There's a link here, but anyway, but I'll go on. Furthermore, when the toys for the prequels were originally released, they were released in both hero and villain packs, and Jar Jar was in the villains pack. It'll be interesting to hear you guys discuss this theory around the most hated Star Wars character. Thanks again. Keep up the good work.
That must have been Tom a joke, Pollard. Right? That must have been a joke. They must have knew what they were doing. Unless they come out... No, they probably come out before the fucking film did.
I had no idea that was a thing.
James, how much do you know about this?
I know a bit. I mean, so this is the whole thing about Jar Jar Binks being a Sith Lord and being a co-conspirator with Palpatine because they're from the same planet, and that apparently they were working together throughout the whole thing, and that he's Jar Jar's one of the most evil things ever.
Deep cover Sith operators.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And that they point to all
that
sorts
theory
of...
doesn't work.
Well, they point to all sorts of stuff like how he can jump really high, how can he do that? He must be using the Force, to do that sort of stuff. He's also the one...
thing. It's he's really haphazard and yet somehow manages to take out loads of robots and stuff.
And he's dodging he's dodging laser bolts left, right and centre and all that. And that must be because he's got all those sorts of powers. And also he's the one he puts votes to allow to have Palpatine the enabling act kind of thing. And so that he's really Palpatine's right hand thing.
I remember reading his theories, and it's fascinating because obviously people are putting really compelling stories together. But
actually, how did they know where Amidala was in that hotel?
Well, there you go.
Or whatever it was. I don't think it was a hotel. Magic, where the Premier Inn.
Yeah, it wasn't a Premier Inn.
Also, the actor who was was it Ahmed Best, wasn't it? Was Jar Jar Binks?
I don't know.
Yeah, he said in an interview recently, he was saying George had said to him, that's maybe not far from the truth. But I think by this point George is just trolling people.
George is just saying, that's a better idea than I thought. Let's just go with that. Yep.
Like, why didn't I do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We should drop some bombshells in there. Like, it turns out actually that Darth Vader was Obi-Wan Kenobi all along. Yeah, thought about that. Had that idea too. Definitely. Yeah, all right, George. Go on.
That's it. But you should definitely look into that theory. It's quite fascinating. Lee Hannigan has emailed in, loving the show so far. It's been a great reminder of all the reasons why I love and hate Star Wars. Has there ever been a franchise that's simultaneously so amazing and so awful?
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, name
Big one. Brother.
That's up there.
That's up there.
The Terminator, that series. I mean, that's been like that as well.
Yeah, but the Terminator had a cutting off point, right?
Well, yeah, Terminator, maybe 1 and 2, and then it went just to pieces, didn't it?
Exactly. So it wasn't. Although to be fair, yeah, and I mean, as far as I'm aware, this has got a cut off point at the moment. So
the Police Academy films.
Oh God! Well, go and watch the original ones now.
Mission Impossible. I didn't rate that one. So.
Jesus.
Anyway, Jesus. One thing that's been really bugging me, and considering how much of a stickler for detail James is, I'm surprised Dave hasn't pulled him up on it already. Oh my God! Okay, this did my nutting, James. I'm going to read the emails. I can't believe
Matt's doing a George Lucas there. I thought of this too.
I can't believe it. I think I might do. I'm not sure. I guess I didn't mention this on the previous one, but I can't believe I haven't mentioned it up to now, James. Anyway, I'll continue an email. It's a minor thing, but crops up about 12 times the show, makes me cringe every single time. Dave, please, for the love of God, the plural of Jedi is not Jedis, it's Jedi. They're like sheep with lightsabers and bad dialogue. So yeah, James, why? Dave kept saying Jedis. It's clearly Jedi. Why did you never stop for 1 second and sort of explain it's Jedi?
I know James's answer already, and he's bang on. Go on, James.
Well, there's other bigger things, isn't there, to go on. I mean, this is not like...
but they're just commonly...
So what you're saying, Dave is wrong about so many things that you have to pick your battles? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you can't pick him up on just every little thing, can you? Because
No, but you can pick him up on one of the biggest thing where he's like calling Jedis...
Okay.
Is it?
That's not
James,
one of the...
I thought your response was going to be like, who cares?
Well, there is that as well, but, I mean, as the email itself says, it's a minor thing. So if it's a minor thing, who cares? You know?
What's the biggest thing that I've got wrong?
I mean, that. No, I can't think of anything else, but it's just
there was the time that I called Obi-Wan Kenobi Han Solo.
There was that time, yeah.
What else? I haven't got that much wrong, have I?
I mean, you've had predictions wrong, but that's understandable, because, with the things going on. But yeah, nothing major.
You've been largely fine, yeah. It's Jedi. It is Jedi. But you didn't mention it once, James. I couldn't. Anyway, Dean Noonan has emailed in. Been great to listen to all these. Great work, guys. I saw the original trilogy first time around. I was 6 when I saw A New Hope on its first UK cinema release in early 1978. So very interesting to hear the reaction to the subsequent revisionism by Lucas, etc. Regarding the prequel trilogy, you both have a spot on. The films were a missed opportunity. Therefore, I would like to pose a question for your next instalment. Should they remake the prequel trilogy?
No.
As David pointed out, they could get to episode 4 so many different ways. Looking forward to the next installments. Cheers, Dean. That's a great idea.
They won't do that.
No, you can't do that.
They totally fucking should, though.
Imagine 3 visionary directors, so they're all totally different. That'd be fantastic.
They should. I mean, it would be so much. But then, how much are they allowed to change the actual plot?
Exactly.
That would be the kicker, wouldn't it?
I mean, then they become different, entirely different things, don't they? And then it's just
like spin-offs.
Yeah,
but
I don't know what I do.
Yeah,
I mean, they're still tweaking them in a way. James, did you see this comic that sort of confirms who Anakin's dad is?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, this week or last week.
Really creepy. So there'd been a fan theory for years that actually it was Darth Sidious who, because he talks about he's learned how to manipulate the midichlorians and create life, and it was like, well, maybe he essentially impregnated Anakin's mum.
Darth Sidious?
Yeah. Which is gross, yeah.
Oh, surely it would have been better if it was that Jedi who was talking about that did it.
Darth Plagueis, yeah, that would make more sense.
Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah. And then basically, so a comic came out last week or the week before, which it's official, but we don't know if it's canon or not. And it's basically, it's got Darth Vader having visions about like his past and stuff, and it shows his pregnant mum with like a sort of ghostly Darth Sidious behind, sort of cradling her abdomen, and it's fucking creepy as. I mean, because that is a violation of the highest order. Like of all the horrible things he does, like that would surely be like among, like, you know, that's got to be top of the list, right? Like just impregnating a woman without her say so is just absolutely gross.
Yeah, it's a bit out of order, isn't it?
Little bit. So that's in a Star Wars comic that just came out.
Thoughts, David?
Is it, well, that's canon, is it?
Well, no, it's not necessarily. We don't know yet.
Yeah, apparently,
well,
it's an official Star Wars comic. How can it not be canon?
How do they decide that?
I've no idea, man.
Do they turn around and just go, like, is there a bloke that comes out in a suit and stands in front of a cannon and goes, "This is canon"?
Just gives it thumbs up or thumbs down, like, yeah.
Pretty much. But yeah, they get the stuff that comes down from Disney, innit? Whether it is allowed or not.
Yeah.
Or whether it's like a
so that's something that I wanted to ask that I forgot to ask at the start of the show. How did they announce that only the films were canon now and everything else was like we're just denouncing everything else?
Well, that's how they did it.
Because you said that to me
it
on the
was
last
very,
episode.
very straightforward, I think.
Yeah,
it was just like, by the way, everything not in the films, forget it.
Yeah, they were just
like... There was like a statement.
Yeah, they seriously, they came out and they just said, okay, you know, all of that stuff, it's all great or whatever, but it's now Legends, and going forward, just only the the films and like the Clone Wars cartoons. Yeah, that stuff is canon. The rest of it is all.
So they announced that before the Force Awakens came out.
Yeah,
I bet people were fucking furious with that.
Well, they were, because that's the problem with that. You see, is that there was loads of books that came out after that are set after Return of the Jedi that explain things that happen. And you've got all sorts of like kids, you know, you've got, you know, like, you know, kids of like the main heroes and all that kind of thing, and suddenly they're all just gone. You know, they retcon the whole thing.
I that's a risky move when you're trying to bring out the next Star Wars film, and you know how crazy their fans are. To just turn around and go, you know, all that extended universe stuff that you've all researched for years and years and discussed for years and years and loved. Get it, baby.
But then, like, Abrams has got previous for this, because this is what he did with Star Trek. Because he just went like, right, I'm doing Star Trek films now. It's a new timeline. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it's not saying the other stuff didn't happen, just not in this
time
universe.
That's
the Prime universe. This is the Kelvin universe. It's like a whole different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't understand, because how are you supposed to move forward with something when you're constantly having to check against like dozens of books and comics?
It must be impossible.
Adrian, J.J. Abrams sitting in his office, right, just going, okay, bring in the books that I need to read to understand the full Star Wars universe. Like a truck sort of turns up.
Yeah, they're actually already in the car park.
We've got to put out a statement that I ain't reading all of this shit.
Yeah. It's gone.
I mean, at least, you know, with Star Trek, they came up with a story reason, whereas this was just like, nah, forget it. Like, it was just, we have decided this, deal with it.
It's funny because they still, like, there are still Legends stuff that comes out, because, you know, Star Wars The Old Republic, that's still under the Legends, like, sort of banner now.
Oh, right, but that's still continuing.
It's still continuing, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And then, the first email from Adrian, he mentioned that, so the Clone Wars CG, 3D animated one, because that's still going, he mentions that is still considered canon, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
Right, James McCall. Hi, guys. When I was 7, I was 7 when Return of the Jedi came out, so I grew up a massive Star Wars fan. In '98, I was so excited for the prequels, I can't say I was disappointed when I saw them. All your comments and criticisms are completely valid, the scripts are bad, the acting is wooden, etc., but I really enjoyed them. Don't get me wrong, they don't even touch the original trilogy in terms of being fantastic movies, but still, to me, I was so excited for more Star Wars. These days, I think of them as flawed movies that have absolutely excellent moments in. I see them as a starter before the main course of the other films. What lies most uncomfortably with me, however, is the impact of these movies have had on some of their stars, with the negative reaction to their performances. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar, suffered greatly with depression and contemplated suicide at one point before making peace with the role and what happened happened to him. Most horrible of all is the story of Jake Lloyd, who played Anakin in Episode 1. He was only 9 years old during filming, constantly ridiculed, bullied and worse all through school and college life. He suffered terribly with mental health problems, served time in jail for driving offences, and since 2015 has been a patient in a psychiatric hospital suffering from schizophrenia. In a documentary of the making of Episode 1, there's a scene where Jake is excitedly signing a contract for the movie with his parents and producers of the film. As well as writing other films in history, as well as writing other things in history, I wish I could go back in time, snatch the pen out of his hand, and prevent him from ruining his life. Neither of these actors did anything other than what they were told. George Lucas was happy with their performances and directed them in a specific way. It sickens me that Star Wars, which I love so much, has also given birth to the present and ever poisonous new type of harassment, criticism and hatred. Sorry to get heavy, but this part is so often overlooked. I'm glad Dave is enjoying the movies and look forward to hearing the calls after the other films.
I mean, as someone that, as I say, as I'm not as clued up in the Star Wars stuff as you guys are, I don't think you can directly point that at George Lucas, Star Wars, or anything like that. You know, there's some...
Yeah, I think that the point he's making is more that just... Like, they did a job and their boss told them the job they did was fine, and then the rest of the world went absolutely nuts at them. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think the point he's just making is that, like, if the person who is directing you in a film tells you did a good job, you're not going to continue questioning it, especially not if you're 9 years old.
Yeah.
So it's not like there was anything else he could have done.
Nor should they, and nor should you. Like, to me, that sounds like it's indicating of saying, well, the director should point it out, like, and sorted it out. And I don't think that that's right either. The blame here shouldn't be on the creators, the actors, or anything like that. The blame should be on the people that made them feel absolutely horrific about it.
Like people shouldn't react that way in the first place.
No, and they just shouldn't. And we know that, and it's a big problem with society. It is sad that there's this thing that you love that has so many dark stories around it. I don't think you can blame the series, the director, the producer, the writer, or anything for this genuinely serious stuff. You know, we've taken the piss about things, but obviously that's not something that we would find funny or take the piss out of. It's just the way society is, and it is terribly, terribly depressing.
Yeah, I mean, this happened back in like 98.
You get the same thing in games development and lots of other jobs, creative jobs that the public have a massive interest in. It can't be directly pointed at Star Wars and the way that these films were handled.
Yeah.
It's just the way society is, and it's horribly depressing.
Yeah, I mean, this thing happened in like 98 when when this first film came out, and then like it's still happening now, and it's and obviously it's even worse with social media and stuff. I expect it to be
way worse now because fucking hell, Twitter exists.
Yeah.
Where the whole idea is that you're praised for having snap, emotional, horrific decisions, like opinions. Sorry, you know what I mean? Like where people that band together seem to make an impact with their just pure hatred that they put out there on Twitter. I hope that we never come across as anything like that when we're taking the piss out of these films. It's not anything to that level. It's just a really, I just hate that stuff. Like, I just flat out hate it.
Yeah, there's a very clear line between like what you guys are doing with Star Calls and George Lucas stole my childhood. People involved in this film should die. You know, all that horrible shit.
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. And
and as you say, like, unfortunately, that continues.
And I mean, it sucks, man.
Yeah.
And to hear that these people went through this horrific episode is never nice to hear, and to associate it with something that you love is very hard as well. But what I would say is that I can't see anything that they've done wrong there other than made sort of subpar films. And at the end of the day, is that the worst thing? No, of course it isn't. It's those dickheads that roam around the earth and act the way they do.
It's that whole thing of fans feeling like they own the things they like, isn't it? Basically,
that's that whole problem in it with people where it's like, I've paid my money, I can say what I want, about it, and it's just like, no, it doesn't mean you can be a dickhead about things like.
Yeah, it's like I've
unless
emotionally
it's about football,
invested
then
in this
I absolutely,
for years.
fully, 100% support that. Go on. No, I'm joking. Go on.
It's, as you say, it's just that entitlement, because people are like, I've spent money, I've been emotionally invested in this world and these characters, therefore, by not doing it justice, you are hurting me. And it's like, no, man, it doesn't.
It's not even that. It's not even by not doing it justice in my eyes.
Well, exactly.
That's what makes it even worse. It's like,
can be different things to different people.
I've decided this isn't good enough, and I will take my anger out on you. It's pathetic.
Yep.
It is. Right, next email. Dean from Manchester has emailed, "Evening, gentlemen. I wanted to drop by and say a massive thank you for relighting my love for Star Wars. As a kid, I loved the original trilogy, which I own on VHS, but over the years, my love for the franchise died out. Your podcast brought me back to the series during my 2 weeks paternity leave, watching all 8 of the main movies and both spin-offs back-to-back with my beautiful new daughter. It's been a pleasure to listen to the pod alongside the movies, for which James's insight has been genuinely brilliant. You boys even got me into the books. I'm currently working my way through the Thrawn trilogy. On top of that, you've also gained 6 new listeners to the show from my office who have also been listening along to each episode, which in turn has generated some great office Star Wars conversation. Please feel free to give those pricks a shout out. Hello, pricks. We work for one of the big 4 banks and are responsible for delivering multi-million-pound projects.
Definitely pricks then. Go on. I'm joking.
We're responsible for delivering multi-million-pound projects. Instead, most of our days over the last 2 weeks have been taken up by, did you know that was George Lucas's cough? Or did you know the story has been told from R2's perspective? Also, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough. So if there's another financial crisis anytime soon, I want you to know it's your fucking fault, and I'll be sending the FCA in your direction. Another thank you to Dave for scoring episode 2 high in episode 1. I'm also found the love Dave gave to episode 3, particularly when debating whether or not to score it higher in episode 6. I found a thank you to my Xbox buddy Neil for originally getting me into the TCGS podcast last year. The show has got me through many laborious hours for decorating a nursery.
Thanks. Awesome. Thanks so much for the email, and shout out to the pricks. And Matt, is this a good time to plug our Patreon? I think we should. I'm joking. No, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. And we've had a few messages like that where people are saying, "Jesus, I'm suddenly really want to watch the films again," and that. And it's, this is not how I expected these calls to go. I expected, so far, James and I would have had 6 raging calls where I tore the films apart and James defended them. That's what I thought these calls were going to be. And I'm glad that it's kind of not been that. It wasn't what I expected, but it's turned into James and I agreeing a lot, but when we're arguing, kind of understanding each other's point of view as well, which I don't think we've ever achieved in our life.
Yeah, it doesn't usually happen.
It doesn't, does it? Usually it just gets really fucking fierce between the two of us, but I managed to say that Attack of the Clones wasn't the worst Star Wars film, and you went, I kind of understand your point of view.
Yeah. I can. It's understandable. I don't agree, but yeah.
Okay.
Next email from Andrew Smith. I love this series, lads. I drop every other pod as soon as the latest one comes up on my feed and laugh all the way through each episode. Cracking stuff. I'm really happy and quite surprised about how much Dave's enjoyed his prequels. I've not had the urge to watch them in years because I found them so full of monotonous scenes and pointless distractions, but I'd rather be Dave and find things to enjoy in all of them. Gotta say, Dave's so right about there's good in him. Fundamentally, it's pretty obvious that the tense used this present are not past. So how
What's
James
that got to do with it?
Hang on. Let's get this thing finished. So how James thinks Mum's talking about a dead guy, I'll never know.
What dead guy?
He's not dead.
He's not dead.
She thinks he's dead, though, doesn't she?
No.
Of course she does.
No, she
I
doesn't.
don't think Obi-Wan's told her that he basically left him.
Also, they all think she's dead. Everyone thinks she's dead.
I've also got a bone to pick with you, Matt, about this, because the previous email mentioned this and said that he was on my side about it. You skipped that
right.
and just went straight to this one.
There's loads of extra PPSs on that, so I missed it. Yeah, okay. Previous email said, Dave...
We can look.
Hang on, Dave. You're wrong on Amidala's last words. She was absolutely banging on about Anakin, point to James. Okay. I watched this the other day, and I got time over, and basically she says there's good in him still. That was the word you failed to mention on that pod. Like she said,
Plus,
there's good in him
it doesn't
still.
make any sense. Why would she just be like, Daughter, nah. Son, hey, he's a fucking good one. Don't know about the daughter.
It makes absolutely no sense at all.
Also, because actually,
can I fucking talk?
No.
Right, listen. So after that call, I think it was the next morning, right? I went onto Google and I thought, this would be interesting to see what people have, discussed about this line. And I Googled, I think the phrase that I Googled was, who does Anakin talk about when she says there's good in him? And I Googled it, and there was like, Amidala. Who did I say?
Anakin. I'd love to know what the results were.
Amidala, right? I said, and there was no mention of it being about Luke. There was absolutely zero.
Of course
so
not.
I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in trouble. Of course not. You say that, but on the podcast you said, "Yeah, no, you're right. Your view is just as valid as mine."
I never said that.
No, Dave. Those were your words.
Yeah.
No.
Yes, they were. I listened to the pod today. No, you said we both disagree, but your point, James, is just as valid as mine. That's what your words were.
Yeah, and you went, well, yes. You agreed with me.
Well, what was I supposed to say at that point? I wanted to finish the pod.
Just keep saying no.
Well, here's what you should have said. Here's what you should have said, James. She says still at the end. You missed the word still.
I didn't remember that.
Why didn't you say that to me?
Because I didn't remember.
Well then, so where have you left me?
You've
left me hang out for dry. Like, I'm ringing you because you're supposed to be the expert, and you couldn't even remember the fucking line.
You missed a critical word, James.
Yeah. Either way,
is that it? That's what we get
you're still wrong anyway, and it doesn't make any sense. Even without
James,
that thing on the end, it still makes no sense.
I'm not trying to defend my point of view. I'm admitting I'm wrong. I was wrong, right? But what I'm saying is that when we were arguing about it, you could have just said, she says there's good in him still, and then I would have gone, oh yeah, that made no sense.
I didn't remember that line, did I? I don't remember every single line from the film,
Also, if you remember, the order that children were born, it was Luke first, and then he was taken away, and then Leia came out, and then she said it. So Obi-Wan's actually holding Leia at that point. He's not even holding Luke.
So why didn't you point this out to me, James?
Because I didn't remember that.
No, but James, you said on the pod, didn't you, that you just watched a film? Didn't you rewatch it?
I still didn't remember one tiny word that was said at the end of the line. But I do remember the general gist of the whole thing. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Anyway, I was wrong, right? But I'm surprised by the amount of people that have tweeted in. There wasn't a lot. Like, I'm not saying there was a lot, but one reply in defending me was enough, right? Well, you had about 5 people going, actually, I think David might be right here. And also, I've loved the amount of people that have gone, oh my God, how could David think that she was clearly talking about Anakin. How did he think it was anything else? And I just replied, because if that's the case, she said, there's good in Anakin, the child murdering Nazi. Like, it's just, and then they go, yeah, no, good point.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, gotcha.
Because the other thing is, so she dies of a broken heart, fine. But if she's saying with conviction that actually she still thinks deep down he's a good guy, why is she dying of a broken heart? Surely,
dying of a broken heart is never said. That is never said.
It's not said, but there was no other reason why she would have died. There was no.
Not when I googled it.
Too sad.
There was a theory that
Jar Jar killed her.
Because Palpatine learnt how to play with life through using the Force. That used the Force to remove the life from Amidala and put it into Darth Vader to bring him back from the brink.
I mean, I think you're making that up, but it is actually quite convincing.
Just as valid. It's just as valid as she died of a broken heart, isn't it? Because no one says she's dying of a broken heart.
No, just
interestingly. Oh, God, sorry.
The other thing about this is they didn't even have to kill her. There was no need to do that at the end of those films because there's even that line.
Well, she couldn't.
No, there's even the lines in what's called in the original trilogy where Leia says she remembers her mother. You could have had her just still, going into hiding or something like that. That would have been fine. Yeah. There was no need.
That is true. She could have gone into hiding. Yeah.
After episode 3, she's like, I don't want just kill this character. This is over.
That would have been great, actually, if she went into hiding and the last scene was Palp saying that she's dead.
Yeah.
Although wouldn't Anakin have felt through the Force that.
Well, he would have felt. He would have thought it was. He would have felt like his son and his daughter as well, wouldn't he? If that was the case, he never did.
Hold on. The Force is in the cells in the skin, right?
Well, it's everywhere, but the midichlorians like talk to the Force on your behalf or something.
But I thought you said that the cells were in the skin.
No, it's
because I was about to say he had most of his skin burnt off. So how has he still got like?
Oh no, I think they're in the blood, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the blood. Yeah.
Right, they're in the blood, which doesn't come out because the lightsabers are too hot.
Yes,
they've got different settings, Dave.
That is my favourite voice that you do, James. That is my favourite voice when you do that. It's the best. I love it. Right,
interestingly, just back onto so creating life by manipulating midichlorians or whatever. I don't think it's canon anymore, but there are like comics and books and stuff that cover like what Darth Plagueis got up to and how he did it, and it's basically a zombie virus. So even if it had all worked out, he would have just got zombie Amidala and should have been all weird and fucked up.
You wouldn't have been able to tell a difference. Okay. You must be blind because of the love.
What? It's because you love me. It makes it more beautiful. What? And Andrew continues.
Where there was no politics.
Yeah.
Take me back to that time.
Hold me like you did on the edge of that lake.
When you creepily looked at my back.
To my dad, actually. Dad, I wish we could go back to the time of the referendum where there was no politics. So we just all got along. Go on.
Andrew continues. One of my biggest problems with the entire prequel trilogy is the way characters do not act or behave either realistically or consistently. Prime example for me happens early on in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan, after reprimanding Anakin repeatedly after being too impulsive and rash, jumps out of a 1,000-story skyscraper window onto a car and rides into night like a character in Fast and Furious. Out of the two characters in that scene, one who is calm and controlled to the point of being dull, not to mention acting as a teacher, the other a petulant chump with a horn for the person who nearly got assassinated. Who do you think would jump out of the window? The scene just really sums up how badly they dropped the ball and how poor of a job they did building to the admittedly exciting climax of a trilogy. Such a waste of a potential. I'll put a tenner into a Kickstarter version of Dave's version. Yeah, so Dave.
What was my version? I can't even remember my version. I should make one up, shouldn't I? Really? Read it as a screenplay at the end of these calls. Do a whole scene.
Wasn't it? It was your theory about it was like turns out that the Jedi fuck up and get Amidala killed. Is it that?
Oh yeah, that was that. Yeah, that was way better.
Yeah.
That was way better. Give me $5 billion.
James, wasn't the original screenplay supposedly it was like a Sith woman who like seduces Anakin, and that was why he gets all fucked up?
That I've never heard that before.
But again,
that would make a lot more sense as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, like as we said on the call, it would have been much more interesting if it had been her making the moves all the time than it was.
Or if Amidala was in like working with Palpatine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could have easily been done.
Yeah. Fuck,
man. All right.
Damn. Stephen Norman, gents, I'm usually a Farley sympathiser, but his antics in the Phantom Menace Star Wars pod were too much. He won't comment...
What's this? What is this? Go on.
He won't comment on whether or not Jedi Trials feature in the next two films, but is quite happy to tell Dave that Anakin ends up knobbing the Queen. Outrageous.
I thought it was obvious. That was why I just really thought it was obvious by that point. That's where it was going.
Yeah,
but obviously it wasn't.
You absolutely like spoiled
that. You totally ruined that.
Sorry.
Sorry.
And even more so after he had berated either Matt or Sean on the previous show for a throwaway comment about a standalone Han Solo movie existing. Like there wasn't a chance Dave might have noticed one of the most high-profile movie releases of last year.
Well, he clearly did.
You did.
We established that you hadn't.
He did manage to miss it, actually. Love the show, guys. I'm lucky enough just to be old enough to have seen all the films in the cinema, and I've watched the original three back to back at least twice a year since they appeared on VHS. All the prequels on DVD probably once a year, and one of the new ones about once a month since they've each come out on Blu-ray, which makes me a right nerd, but also qualifies me to be really appreciative a part of Dave's journey. Cheers. And that's Steve.
Mate, Steve, we're all nerds. Don't worry about it. We're all in the same boat. Here's something I was thinking of today. Let's get a bit weird. Have a think of what Han Solo looks like in those films.
In which films?
In the Solo film, in the film before, because obviously it's not Harrison Ford, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Right, so have a look at like his image, like just picture him in your head for a minute. I've got absolutely zero idea of what he looks like. Absolutely no idea. I don't know what age he's going to be in those films. If it spans different actors, like as it goes through his life. I don't know if he's wearing that waistcoat from start to finish, the black waistcoat or jacket or whatever it is. You know, I've got no idea, and that weirds me out a little bit because that must be like
the temptation to be like,
head.
oh yeah, they did like with Anakin. He's like 6 in the.
Yeah, for the whole films.
Yippee!
He's going around shooting first all over the place.
Yeah, and flirting with people twice his age.
Chasing around a fucking ship. Go on.
Right, we can go on some tweets. Scientologist, still listening to this week's Star Calls. To me, the most interesting take away is how confused Dave Turner's is about robots.
That's the most interesting take, is it, Ben? That's what you're going with? That's what you come with, is it?
The robots are weird in Star Wars, aren't they? It's like...
No, what's my interesting take? What's my confusion?
Isn't it just like, how robotic are they? Because like, they do basically act like people, right?
Well, I assumed it was something down to... Because someone tweeted in quite early on saying, David doesn't understand what's the difference between a droid and a robot. I was like... Well, I don't understand the difference between.
No, I don't think I do either.
A droid's humanoid, and a robot could be like something working in a factory. Isn't that the idea?
Right. Yeah. So a robot can just be like a machine, basically. Whereas, android implies, sort of humanoid form. Yeah. I don't know. Like with Star Wars, I'd always just taken it as like, guess what? All the robots are just as human as we decide we want them to be. Deal with it. I don't know.
Has he got the up about the cape comment? I still think that's valid.
Which comment? Which bit was this?
Well, the fact you said one of them wore cape here.
Why would you put a cape on a robot? I guess because...
Well, because we find out he's not a robot, right?
No one put a cape on the robot. He put a cape on himself. But even then, like, surely he should know, I've got all exposed, like, pistons and that.
Yeah.
Maybe don't put a cape on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also he's sentient enough
all these angular weird limbs.
He's sentient enough he wants to look good. You know, there's nothing wrong with a cheeky little cape. You know, to
put on a polo shirt. Put on a nice Ralph polo
over there.
Parents, they made them, mate. Did you see how Aunt What's her face was dressed?
Oh yeah, to be fair, they had a clothing store somewhere. Peacocks. Yeah.
She did.
But it's just kind of, I don't know. Yeah, in terms of Star Wars droids, it's just like. You just got to go with it because if you start thinking about it too much, it's like, well, why can't R2-D2 speak English? He can obviously communicate verbally well enough that like people can learn his language, but why give him his own specific language that you have to learn? Why not just give him normal speech, given that there are loads of other droids that just talk normally, you know?
It's like when we were talking about it at the time, I just went, who cares really? Like, but
exactly,
it's fun to pick holes at things like that.
But it's certainly relevant when they didn't wipe R2's memory, but they did wipe C-3PO's.
Yes.
It's like
because it's like implied that it's like, oh well, no one can understand R2 anyway. And it's like, no, loads of people can.
And it's been demonstrated throughout all the films that
people have like full-on conversations with him. Like.
Yeah, all he had to do was say wipe their memories. Because I did go back and watch that, James, and he does say something like wipe the such and such droid's memory.
Protocol droid,
yeah, and I was kind of like, seriously, I was like, why didn't he just say wipe their memories? Like that would have resolved everything.
But like, the fact they didn't, it's like, okay, there must be a reason for that. But no, it's just.
I love the idea that like he's just like, well, R2's chill, he won't say anything, he's fine.
Yeah, R2 just speaks in beeps and bops, it doesn't matter, no one's going to...
R2's been paid off. That's what it is.
R2's on the take for
he's
sure.
He signed an NDA. Yeah.
Although, one thing hasn't come up about the droids, the whole R2 unit thing, the fact that they plug into the ships and they become the ship's computer and like little repair... guy. That's such a good idea. No one's really done anything else with that as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm.
I like how many things like, okay, I know we've seen things where like there's an AI in the ship or whatever that like people can talk to, but how many times has that then like unplugged and then walked around with them and been their actual little mate? Do you know what I mean?
I guess, yeah. No, I think it's like the Nintendo Switch, isn't it?
It's exactly like Nintendo Switch.
And then you can just carry it around the house and that, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
that makes me like him even more. They should do one with a neon blue and a neon red version. When the analog sticks break after a week.
If they had that technology now,
that stopped becoming a metaphor. Me just kind of about the Nintendo Switch after a while, didn't it?
Well, I was thinking,
sorry, Matt.
I was thinking that they could do it now. Like maybe our phones are what powers cars, and so cars are just like empty chassis. It would certainly help with like car crime, wouldn't it? You just like plug your phone in.
A light bulb just appeared over Charlie Brooker's head there.
Yeah. Done. That's the next series. One more question I have about the robots is that you were perplexed about that robot with the 4 arms and
not a robot.
Yeah, well, sorry, the droid, the guy with 4 arms doing the incredible lightsaber battles, and you were like, well, how's that happened? How's he been taught? And it's like, well,
yeah,
but like obviously he's just told him how to wield one, and the fact he's got 4 is his own plans.
He's in the. They were working in unison, though, Matt.
In the Clone Wars, you see what's his name training him, Dooku.
Yeah. You see it,
yeah.
What is he like? Because I imagine him right. He's got 2 like lit up lightsabers on the floor and 1 in each hand, and he's like, so your top hands you do this, okay, watch that, and then he puts those 2 down and then picks the other 2 up and then like holds them lower, and then with your other 2 hands you do this, but it's not like you don't go still with those ones and then move those ones and then swap. You do that at the same time with all 4. Like he's like dropping them. He walked in like. He walks into the training room with 4 unlit lightsabers like against his chest with his arms around him. He drops one to the floor, goes to pick it up, and another one falls down. Hold on a minute. Just got to pick this up.
I like the idea that like Count Dooku saw him like playing Beat Saber and being like, hang on a minute.
You're great.
He's got potential.
Yeah. Oh, for fuck. I took a lot of shit about my opinions on Count Dooku, but I noticed something about that. People like the actor more than they do the character.
Yeah, that's definitely
because
true.
Every time they came in to defend him, they were like, "But he's brilliant actor." And I wasn't really having a go at his acting. It was just the character was a bit shit. You know what I mean? Like, especially when he flies off at the end of the second Attack of the Clones. Like, it's just like, oh, fuck off, mate.
I think the other thing that's not. I mean, it's not really spelled out. I guess it's obvious when you think about it. But yeah, General Grievous, like all those lightsabers he's got are from Jedi he's killed.
Yeah.
Like he is supposed to be like pretty fearsome, but he's kind of ridiculous.
He went against Obi-Wan, was he?
No, taken down.
Well, I mean, with a blaster, how undignified.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not even that. It was just like, okay, oh my god, like, this is so fearful. What the fuck's going to happen? Just lob off the arms one by one in the space of about 10 seconds.
Yeah, and he's very easily exposed lungs.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan was doing all that like posing as well while he was doing it. He was totally mugging him off like the entire fight.
He was, yeah. Totally.
Shawnee boy, I wonder if Dave feels like he's missed out on not seeing his films on the big screen.
Yes. To some extent, because only for the intro bit. Like, I bet when that Star Wars thing comes up on a massive screen with the music just blasting out speakers, I bet when I go and see this film on, I don't even know if they continue. They must do. They definitely do that in the next films, don't they?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Maybe not the side ones. Yeah. They might drop it for one of the side ones, maybe, or maybe both of them. I don't know, but. For the mainline ones, they've got to have that intro, and if I go see it in December, the new one, that is going to be the bit that I'm most excited about. Just that, like that is.
It's always great to see the crawl, but also it's like the first transition after the crawl was always really interesting. You know, I always find because is it going to be? Are you going to look at like the shadow of a ship? Is it going to are they going to flip it some way? Yeah, but it's great hearing that. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's so good in the cinema.
Have they released like 4K Blu-rays of these?
I think they're about to do a 4K release of episode 8. But yeah, like because I had this because I wanted to rewatch 7 and 8 recently. Solo's in 4K as well. But yeah, I was like, oh man, why isn't Force Awakens in 4K? And it's like, because it's already 4 years old. Like, you forget. You're just like, oh, that was recent. It's like, well, not really. We're still just on the cusp of like 4K HDR being a regular thing.
But it would have probably been shot in 4K,
I bet it'd be 4K on iTunes.
Probably, yeah.
No, it's not. It's not, because that's the one I've got.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay.
No, they've been really weird about this as well, because the stuff, like, if you buy it off iTunes, they're only, like, in HD. There's no, like, 4K versions. The reason for that is because of this whole, like, Disney streaming service, and the fact they're trying to keep all this stuff, like, locked down to where you have to buy it or whatever from certain providers. It's a bit of a mess.
I want to watch one of these films in 4K, I think. Because I bet they look absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of these, I wouldn't imagine it was down to how they were shot, the time they were shot, because, I mean, Jesus Christ, there's a ton of films that are way older than this that were technically shot in 4K because of the
it's just obviously at the time they weren't releasing films in 4K, like
no,
Blu-ray or whatever. I think they are going back and re-releasing them in 4K, yeah.
I'm actually going to have to rebuy the new ones, because I didn't have any Star Wars DVDs at home, but I rebought the prequel trilogy to rewatch for this particular roundtable. But I'm going to have to now buy like Solo and Force Awakens and stuff, because I haven't seen them for ages either. So I'm quite excited to watch them again. Okay, another question here. Interested to hear your thoughts on Qui-Gon Jinn's revelation in Episode 3. I quite like the dramatic irony.
Hang on, Matt. What did you just say?
Well, it's written there Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, that's how it's spelled.
That is how you spell it, but it's Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, okay, right, okay, I know.
So sorry, should I have said Jedi instead of Jedi?
That's the thing,
definitely should
you
have said
really
Jedi,
pulled me up on that, Matt.
Anyway,
I'm glad you picked me up on
interested
that.
to hear. But it's a little bit Jedis and Jedis, a little bit different to like Gui and Gwai, whatever. It's a little bit different.
Greek-Rai. Oh, it's Greek-Rai now, is it?
It's a little bit different. Anyway, interested to hear your thoughts.
Obi-Wan's
what?
Master. Pay some fucking respect, yeah? He taught Obi-Wan how to do Roger Moore style quips.
And I quite like the dramatic irony that he achieved exactly what Anakin was striving for on the dark side, cheating death.
Well, this is it, isn't it? This is the whole thing. It's like, if you can be a nice, good Jedi and just accept that, your form will pass away, but you live on in the Force, then that's fine. But it's that obsession with like, no, I need this person to stay alive. It's that not accepting that they're just moving on. That then, makes you a bit dark side and a bit fucked up. I think the implication is, James, you might know that, like, if you end up, like, turning to the dark side, like, you don't pass on in that same way. Like, you don't, because you're not accepting death, like, you don't get to live on as, like, a Force ghost or whatever. But that is, I think that is an intentional bit.
They didn't go into the Force Ghost at all, really, in did they?
No.
I mean, they mentioned that there's Qui-Gon Jinn is.
There is no, because there's reasons for that, because that was supposed to be, revealed in Revenge of the Sith, actually, because Qui-Gon, Jinn was supposed to be in that film as, a Force Ghost, because there was supposed to be this big reveal where he talks to Yoda about how he's managed to do this, and,
well, Yoda mentions it about him,
speaking to him, doesn't he? Yeah.
But then they don't. If you look at whatever Blu-ray you've got, there'll be a deleted scene of that because you can see it. But
really?
But it's a really rough deleted scene because it's one of those ones where it's like it's all just like animation and stuff because they hadn't actually filmed it.
Just storyboards. And
it's a storyboard.
Yeah.
Okay, not a deleted scene then. Fine.
Cool. We had some other tweets here. Pantsmaster. Oh my god, Mr. Elmo insists that Padme was talking to Luke in her final words. My sides hurt from laughing.
Okay, we've covered that, right?
What's wrong? There's at least 20 of them doing that. Luke's hand, little quote here. Do you know what a force field is? Do you know what a force field is in science fiction? I mean, James absolutely got you there. Absolutely did you on that one.
What was what do you guys think of that discussion?
I was very confused with you questioning it. I mean, force fields just keep things in or out, and the whole breathing in space thing.
That's why I was confused. It was one of those things.
It's just a force field. There's been a million of them in all sorts of TV
films, any science fiction film that's set in space has them. It's I
think you're just supposed to go with the idea that it can hold an atmosphere in, but not if you chucked something through it, it would pass through it.
I genuinely thought, okay. So I thought about this a lot, right? Uh-huh. So I genuinely thought a force field was just to keep objects out. Uh-huh. It was like a net, essentially, of lasers. You know what I mean? That was what the image that was in my head, not an atmosphere around a thing. I might have mentioned this and you corrected me, actually, James.
Mm-hmm.
But What was Han Solo trying to turn off when he was on the Ewok planet?
Well, he was trying to switch off the shield that was around the Death Star.
Right. And that's on a separate generator to the force field.
Yeah.
So the force field would still be up.
Because the Death
shield
Star,
wouldn't.
No, the Death Star would have its own shields inside that would be for doors, whatever, that kind of thing. But the other shield that was on the Forest Moon was there to protect the Death Star.
Yeah, so there's a difference between a shield
and a force field.
Yeah. So the shield is for actual protection, whereas the force field is to I don't
know any of this.
So ships can just pass in and out of a docking bay or whatever without everyone getting sucked out in space. Well, technically blown out into space.
Yeah.
There's one. Right. There's one for the nerds.
So what we're saying, this is like the Lake Kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey.
Yes, actually, yes. Yeah, that is it. Basically.
Cheers. All right, got it.
Keep on paddling, tweeting. What an unbelievable fuck up from James, not responding to I know to David telling him that he loves him. He crossed it in, and all James had to do was give it a little nudge towards the goal. Instead, he just sheepishly mumbled "okay" and hung up. 10 out of 10. Farley moment.
I love James. James is the best. And I just thought that is just the best.
Yeah,
it's the best.
See, because after that happens, I said to him, I should have said that, and then we were like, I was like, should we re-record it? I was like, nah, just leave it. It's funnier.
I said this is better. Yeah. This is more James than you could ever imagine. Yeah. Love it.
I think we're in with that, actually. Those are the tweets.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. I'm looking forward to the next few films.
I can't wait, man.
I'm so excited.
I've watched 6. I've got 4 left, so I'm way past the halfway mark.
Yeah,
God, yeah.
And I'm beyond excited about the next one. I'm really looking forward to it. So,
are we allowed to say what we think of it or not?
Probably shouldn't.
Okay.
No, don't.
Probably shouldn't.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, because
I don't know.
Preload it.
I don't know much about it, so I don't know much about what people think of it. Is what I mean.
Cool. I can't wait to hear what you think about all of them.
But yeah, I mean everything that I said on the show, like the response we've had from people has been incredible. Thank you so much for getting in touch. There will be another roundtable, but it will probably be after the last film that I'm going to watch in this run. So there'll be four more calls and then the roundtable, and then we're done. I should mention that this podcast is a sort of a side story to the main podcast, which is the Computer Game Show, and you can listen to that. It's a weekly podcast, comes out every Wednesday about computer games, and you can listen to that on all your favourite, wherever you're listening to this, you can listen to the Computer Game Show, so be sure to subscribe to that as well. And we have a Patreon, Matt. If you'd like to support Star Calls or the Computer Game Show, it's all under one banner. Where do they go for that,
That's
Matt?
patreon.com/TCGS.
And we really appreciate anything that you're able to do to help support the stuff that we do, and we'll make sure that we do more of it. That's the idea behind that one. And we didn't mention our Twitter last time, but if you want to contact the show, and you don't know how, then you can follow us on @ComputerGamePod. That's @ComputerGamePod. We should do our individual ones as well, just in case there's people that don't listen to the Computer Game Show. So I'm @David Turners, James.
@JCA Farley.
Matt.
I'm @Matt Murray with just one T.
And Sean.
@Captain Toss, who I recently found out is actually a Star Wars character.
Yeah, I was about to say, he sounds like a Star Wars character. Yeah. Is he in one of the films I'm going to watch?
No, he's in some, I don't know, like a book or some bullshit. Somewhere. Yeah.
Technically,
Captain Toss is. Yeah.
We'll catch you next week for The Force Awakens. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. It's all right.
Goodbye.